There are moments in life when the darkness feels endless. Moments when you pray, but heaven feels silent. Moments when you try to move forward, but pain keeps pulling you back. Moments when you feel unseen, unwanted, forgotten, and spiritually exhausted. And maybe today, that person is you. Maybe you feel like the blind man in John chapter 9, sitting in the dust of disappointment, watching life pass by, hearing other people talk about joy, purpose, and blessings, while you silently wonder if God remembers your name. But hear this today. Your condition is not your conclusion. Your struggle is not proof that God abandoned you, and your darkness is not the end of your story. In John 9, the disciples looked at the blind man and asked a painful question. Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? In other words, who is to blame for this suffering? Why was he born this way? What did he do wrong? Isn't that how people still think today? When someone is broken, judged. When someone is struggling, ignored. When someone is hurting, misunderstood. But Jesus answered with power and compassion. This happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. What a powerful truth. Sometimes the very pain you cry about becomes the platform where God reveals his glory. Sometimes the struggle was not sent to destroy you, but to prepare a miracle through you. That blind man was rejected by society. People saw him as a burden, a problem, a nobody sitting on the side of the road. But while everyone else saw a hopeless case, Jesus saw purpose. And maybe people have overlooked you too. Maybe they dismissed your tears, ignored your gifts, judged your past, laughed at your weakness, but never confused people's opinion with God's vision. Because Jesus sees what others cannot see. He sees the person behind the pain, the calling behind the struggle, the future behind the suffering. The same people who ignored you may witness your miracle. The Bible says, Jesus spit on the ground, made mud, placed it on the blind man's eyes, and told him to wash in the pool of Siloam. It didn't make sense. Imagine being blind your whole life, and now someone places mud over your eyes. Sometimes God's process feels uncomfortable before it becomes beautiful. Sometimes healing begins in ways you do not understand. And this is where faith is tested. Can you trust God when you cannot see what he is doing? Can you keep walking when life feels uncertain? Can you obey God even when the instructions seem strange? The blind man could have doubted. He could have argued. He could have stayed where he was. But instead, he moved by faith, and when he washed his eyes, suddenly darkness gave way to light. Can you imagine that moment? For the first time in his life, he saw the sky. He saw faces, he saw colors, he saw the world he had only heard about. And I believe God is speaking to someone right now. Jesus can restore the vision your pain tried to steal. Some of you have lost your spiritual vision. Life wounded you, disappointment blinded you, fear clouded your faith. But Jesus is still opening blind eyes today. Not just physical eyes, but spiritual eyes. Eyes that can finally see hope again. Eyes that can finally believe again. Eyes that can finally recognize that God never left. You may not understand why your journey has been painful. You may not understand why the waiting season lasted so long. But one encounter with Jesus can change everything. One touch from God can restore what depression stole. One moment in his presence can heal years of brokenness. One word from heaven can bring light into your darkest night, because Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Light does not fear darkness. Light overpowers darkness, and when Jesus enters your situation, darkness cannot remain. So do not give up now. Your story is not over. Your pain still has purpose. Your scars still carry meaning, and God can use broken people for extraordinary things. The enemy wanted your blindness to bury you, but God will use your testimony to inspire others. The tears you cried in secret, God saw them. The prayers whispered in exhaustion, God heard them. The nights you almost gave up, God stayed beside you And one day, the very thing that made people question your life will become proof of God's power. So lift your head today. You are not forgotten. You are not cursed. You are not abandoned. You are loved by a God who still heals, still restores, still redeems, and still brings light into impossible darkness. Your darkness is not the end of your story. The light of the world is still shining, and his name is Jesus.